Happy Thursday, friends. How are you? Thanks for joining me on this Thursday afternoon. I want to welcome you all. We're going to be talking about icing. I'm going to give a minute for everybody to hop on. But I've got a fresh batch of icing all ready for our demonstration today. So I'm super excited that you're here to join me. So we are going to go ahead and get started. So first things first, when you make your royal icing, it dries out very quickly, and your icing starts to set. So you never want to just like have a bowl like this sitting out, or it's going to dry out and crack. So I always just take like a wet paper towel, like I've just gotten a paper towel wet and it's wrung it out in my sink. Or you can get saran wrap to go over, but I put this over. Well, it like split down the middle, but like this, and then I will put a dish towel over that many times. Let me show you a dish towel. So I just have a dish towel that I put over it, and that just keeps it all fresh. So then when I'm going, I just kind of lift up there and just make sure that your paper towel is always wet to keep it, it'll keep it from drying out. So first things first, well, I already said first things first, didn't I? This is icing I literally just made, and it's the last bag of sugar I have in my house, which is kind of funny. But this is, I beat this for 3 to 4 minutes on high, and this is going to be my outline consistency. So a good outline consistency is going to give you these stiff peaks, as you can see here, and they just kind of curl. Do you see how they curl over a little bit? I don't know if you can see that. It might be too bright. But this is what you want for your outline icing. If it is too thick, when you go to outline, your icing is going to break when you do your lines. So, and if it's too thin, you're going to see like it's not going to hold its shape at all, and it's going to be really thin. It's going to be hard to work with. So after I mix my icing, I just take my spatula and just kind of run it around and get as much icing off of the paddle attachment as I can. So that way it's all in my bowl, all nice, and I can just work with just my spatula and my icing. So I'll put that aside. I feel like I'm going to get really messy. So again, this is thick icing. It's your outline consistency, and it's like a toothpaste. So you see there, it's got like a little curl to it and that little peak, and that is exactly what you want. So this, you would take it and bag it or color it. You want to color it first, unless you're using white. You want to color it first. I use these Ziploc bowls that just work fantastic. So they work great. I like a round bowl because it's easier to mix. And I use these fantastic spatulas that are all one piece, and they're rubber, and they're fantastic to work with. You can get these on Amazon. I have them linked on my highlights under favorite things, and I love them. They are fantastic. They come like in a set of 4. These are the smaller ones. They have larger ones as well that are like this size, and they're fantastic. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to put some outline icing in here. I'm actually going to, and then I'm going to cover this up because I don't want it to dry out. So I'm just going to cover it up and focus on my outline icing here. So with your outline icing, You want to make sure that it's got a good stiffness, but it's not too thick, so don't over mix your icing. Just kind of keep an eye on it, especially if you're new and you're not used to it. So let's go ahead and bag some. And I use bags from, I don't know if you can see that, from Wonderfully Delicious. You probably can't see that. And they are tipless bags, and I just use a Tervis cup that, look, it's got icing on it. I just use these. They are perfect for bagging your icing. So this is a size small piping bag, and I'm just going to use, just grab a little bit in here. I just got all over there and do it. So we're just going to outline. Let me grab a cookie real quick. And sometimes I like to just tie these. It's just easier. But let me grab a cookie. See what I got. I've got a cookie here. This is one that I didn't use because it burned here on the edge. So it's just going to be my little demo today. So when you are cutting your bags and you have like your tipless bags, you want the seam straight up to the ceiling. I'm trying to find my scissors that I had here. These are my better scissors. And I'm just going to cut straight across. And we're going to see how this does. Okay, so that's a little too small. The hole's too small, so I want to make it a little bit bigger. I always cut my bags more conservative at first, because you can always take off icing. You can't put it back on. I'm sorry, not icing, a bag. Okay, so you're going to outline. So see how well this does and just goes on smooth and isn't falling, but it isn't running over the side, and it's not breaking. That's exactly what I want. That's when I know it's the right consistency. So there you have your outline. Sometimes you can just like mark on this so you know that it's your outline. And then typically I have next to me in my kitchen, I have a little bowl with a teaspoon in it. So many years ago when I took a cake class, this is what our teacher taught us when we were ready to thin out icing, is that you just have like a little bowl with a teaspoon in it, because you're going to add 1 teaspoon at a time to your icing to get it to the right consistency. So I'm going to add just a little bit, just a dash. I didn't even add a whole, probably half of a teaspoon, because there's not as much icing in here. But I'm just going to mix it up here, and want to make sure I get all of it incorporated in my water. And what I like to do is kind of pick it up and see how it flows. So I know that if I have breakage in this stream here, it's not ready yet. It needs a little bit more water. So right now it's kind of got a full stream, but I'm going to add just a teeny tiny. This is where if you have a spray bottle of water, you can use that, and that's helpful as well. I don't. I just have the bowl with a teaspoon, and that works well for me. So you have your icing, and so see how it just has one continuous drip, like it's not breaking at all. And so I know that's when it's ready to flood. And also you can see kind of in the bowl, some people count seconds. You can also count to, this is I think a good flood consistency is about 13 seconds. So you can count to 13, and you see the little ribbons there. Sorry, it's my dog. You see the little ribbons? You can count to 13, and 13 seconds is how long it takes for it to all kind of settle back out. So let's bag this one. And so you can see how it is. So I'm going to just put it back here in my bag. And I just kind of like to push it all down, get any air bubbles that you might have. I don't always time in a knot, especially if they're flood icing, because they won't be as full, or they'll be a lot fuller. And I'm just going to cut a hole pretty large because I don't have to worry about the size of the hole being exactly like a tip. So I like to start on the outside and work my way in. So I'm just following along the line that I already made with my outline icing. So there's no amount of time that you have to wait for your outline icing before you add your flood. You can do it right away, or you could outline them and go run to the grocery store and come back and flood them. So totally up to you and what your preference is. So let me grab my scribe. And this one right here. And so I'm just going to use this to push my icing around. And so this gives you your flood consistency. So let's talk about 20-second icing. So many people say that they don't have time to do 2 consistencies. I almost always use an outline icing and a flood icing, 2 different consistencies. So typically what I'll do is make up 2 to 3 colors of everything that I need, and it's an outline consistency form. I'll color it, I'll bag it, and then I'll cover it with a wet paper towel and wait until I'm ready to flood. And so that's when I will make my flood icing for it. But there's another icing that you can use that's kind of in between outline and flood, and it's called 20-second icing. And I'm just going to grab some more icing. And so again, this is your outline icing. And so you can see that it is stiff. It's got stiff peaks on it. You can see the peaks in there kind of have like a little curl at the very top. Also, you can tell when you have it on your spatula and you shake your spatula, it doesn't move. So it's there, it's going to stay there, it's not going anywhere. So to get your 20-second, it's going to be thicker than your flood icing, but it's going to be thinner than your outline. So I'm going to add just a dab, maybe half a teaspoon for this amount that I have in my bowl. I'm going to mix it up. Now, if you get it too thin, you can always add powdered sugar to thicken it back up. It does take quite a bit of powdered sugar, though, I will say, to thicken it, especially for wanting it really thick. If you have like thin icing and you want it to make it really thick, like you're doing flowers or leaves, that is going to be harder to get to. So always add just a little bit more water. You can always add more water. It's harder to put it back in. So see how we've got like the breakage? And this is called 20-second icing because if you swipe your spatula, you're going to count to 20. I'm not going to count right now because it'll take a long time. And it's going to take 20 seconds for this icing to come back together. So you're counting that 20 seconds and you're waiting for it to come back together. So see how it comes back together and just meets back in the middle? That is what your 20-second is. And your 20-second icing, the great thing about it is you can outline and flood your cookies with the same consistency. A lot of people use this for like mini cookies. It's great for and things like that. So, and also it's great for if you want to avoid craters. If you have a small space in your cookie that you're filling icing with and you don't want a crater. A crater is when an air bubble forms, and when the icing starts to set, the air bubble pops and your icing falls, creating a crater on your cookie, which is horrible, disastrous. We hate that. Another way to fix craters is to put it in front of a fan. Sorry for the noise. Put it in front of a fan almost immediately, and that will help a lot. So that is your 20-second icing. So this icing will last for 2 to 3 weeks in the fridge. You do not have to refrigerate it. I typically do just at night because it just, I don't know, I think it makes it last a little bit longer. but it does not have to be refrigerated. It could sit out on the counter all day if you want, and it'll still be good the next day. So, and I do add a little bit of vanilla, clear vanilla, into my icing just to give it the extra flavor that makes it taste really, really good. So, any questions on any of that? I'm going to scroll back through and see if I see any questions from you guys. But yeah, icing consistency is the number one thing with cookies. It's the number one thing that you're going to deal with of trying to get it right. It takes a lot of practice for you to get it right, but just keep trying, and then you'll get better. So someone said, sometimes my flood bags get clogged as I'm flooding. I have to squeeze so much to get the icing to come out. Any advice for that? So sometimes, like if your bowl, if you get like little crusties here on the edge and they fall into your icing, you can get, or sometimes I do not sift my sugar or my flour with my cookies and icing. So you can get like a little clog in there. And so what I do is I just have like a wet paper towel kind of always with me and beside me while I'm working. And I will take a paper towel, and I do this for my classes as well, as we all have like wet paper towels. And I just take it and just kind of squeeze it. And so that just kind of gets any clog out of there. You don't want to have to squeeze too hard, because then it's going to come out and explode, and you don't want that. So if you can, a lot of times you can like feel like if there's just like a piece of sugar that just didn't get incorporated in or whatever, or it's like a crusty that's in there. Usually doing that just kind of frees it up, so you can kind of see there how it does that. So great question on that. So love the split test. Yes, I'm not sure. Stop. I'm not sure who showed me that a long time ago. But you're just like parting the seas and watching it go back together. So that's also, I kind of like the spatula test to see how it drips, because I can usually just pick it up and just kind of know. Also, forgot to mention with 22nd, you can dip cookies. I got this little cookie here. And so with 22nd, this is kind of cool. If you have like, if you're doing like 100 Easter cookies and you're doing like 100 white eggs, I might have to do this for the ones I have next week. I have a lot of white eggs to make. Is you're going to take your cookie like this, and you're going to dip it in here. Now, I didn't let it go, but I don't know if you can see, but I'm just going to like letting it cover. I'm going to let it drip off of here, if you can see that. I'm going to let it drip. Drip, drip, drip. Now, I'm not very good at this piece, but as you can see, my icing may not be thin enough to do the dip. But usually with 22nd, you just want to shake it a little bit. I'm trying to get it over to this area here. And it's got to all settle out. And with a little help from the scribe here, my boo-boo stick. And there you go. So that's just like a quicker way. Like I said, if you're doing like a ton of cookies and you've got like 150 cookies to do white, this is a good way that you don't have to outline and then flood, outline and then flood. It's a little bit quicker. So, great question. Let's see. Do you use a tip for outlining and then the tipless bags for flooding? Yes, yes, yes. So I use tips. I use a 2.5 PME tip for outlining, and have one here in black. It's a 2.5. Love it. Great. I just like a tip because try both ways, because it just gives me more control over my icing, I feel like, when I have a tip on there. So a lot of times I'll have the tip for outlining and for details. So for flowers and writing, what consistency do you use? So for writing, I usually use a number 2, which is a little bit smaller than this, or a 1.5. Just depends on what size font I'm looking for in the size of cookie. And flowers, I use just a variety of tips. So here's my little tip toolkit, I guess you could call it. Some of them might be dirty. This is the leaf tip that I use. It's a 352. I use that one the most. This is a number 18. This is great for a rosette. This one is not a great one. It does not work as well. It's a number 14. But the number 16 and 18 are really good. This is a 16. It's a really good one for a rosette as well. And I must have my other one on. Oh, I do. It's on my brown. So this I used for, I use this one for a lot, number 18 for flowers. And I also used it yesterday to make horse hair. So it's great for like your unicorn hair or the horses. This is what I use, the 18 star tip. So, and this is a Wilton. I would suggest getting the PME. You can tell a difference. This is a Wilton one that I've had like for 100 years, and this is the PME. And so the PME will always stay like this because it's made out of stainless steel, whereas the Wilton are not, and they will turn. It still works, but as you can see, this tip has a seam in it, and so that can cause your icing to get squiggly when it comes out. So obviously I'm not going to use it for a lot of details, so it's just in here as a spare. I'm slowly changing over all my tips to be a PME. Can I show writing consistency? So your writing consistency is going to be what is in your bowl, what your outline consistency is. So I'll just show you on this bowl here. I thought that was it. Okay. So this obviously is cut a little bit bigger, but it's going to be the right consistency because it's going to keep its shape. So you're just going to use your same outline icing for your letters and for your writing. How much icing do you make to ice 24 cookies? Usually like one batch of icing, which is 2 pounds of sugar, 5 tablespoons of meringue powder, and 3/4 cup of water, should cover 24 cookies. As long as you don't have a ton of colors in there. If you've got like 3 to 4 colors, you should be good to go. I have a hard time with getting tiny little air bubbles out of my flood icing. How can I keep those from forming? So one thing that you can do is when you mix your icing and you mix your flood icing and you have your spatula and everything and you've made your color and you're about ready to bag, when you're at that like point where you're ready to bag, put it aside, put a damp cloth over it and wait about 10 minutes. You'll see all the air bubbles will come to the surface, and then you just take your spatula and you kind of just like pop all those air bubbles and then bag it, and that should help when you're bagging it, to help any of the air bubbles to pop. So, and somebody just asked about the writing and the flowers. Again, for the writing, I use my outline consistency. With flowers, I will use, I will make my outline icing. Outline, that sounds, outline. Sounds funny. I will thicken it up with some powdered sugar. So I can add powdered sugar to this, and it's going to make it thicker, and that will be ready for like if you're doing roses or rosettes or leaves, something that you want to keep its shape and not to fall. You want to add just powdered sugar and make it a little bit thicker than your outline icing that you've got here. So I usually will just put some aside in a bowl and know that I'm going to color it green or red or whatever I'm going to use it for, and just thicken it up a little bit. So those are all great questions. Thank you guys so much for joining me this week. If you have other questions, please feel free to ask me. Don't forget to download my starter kit that I have on my website. You can go to the link in my profile and get to that and sign up for my email list, and then you can find out what is around the corner with my online course that I will be launching very soon. So thanks so much, guys, and I can't wait to see you next week. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.